All right. Okay, so hopefully, can you guys see a thingy that it says recording? All right,
Yes, it said this meeting is being recorded.
wonderful. Okay. All right, so I'll go into slideshow mode. I'm just gonna move this out of the way a little bit so that I can see what I'm doing. All right, so yeah, thank you so much for making the time to attend this training today. I really don't think that it should take that long. And it's been a while since I've given this version of the training, since VBC only happens once a year. So I'm going to just go slow. And then feel free to stop me as I'm going through this and ask questions. And we can just knock it out of the way as we move through the training slides. All right, so I always try and start with the beginning. And so of course your first encounter with your participant or with your kiddo would be at meet and greet. So there's a few things that I just want to remind you. And, frankly, all of the things I think that I'm going to go through today is very obvious and logical. Sometimes it just needs a little bit of a reminder. And they're like, oh yeah, I suppose I can do this. So feel free to just be very creative. You're gonna hear my little ongoing theme of being enthusiastic and being a cheerleader for your kiddo. You're going to hear that as I move through this slide. So okay, so getting ready for a meet and greet. Just again, very obvious. Welcome and introduce yourself. Sometimes it is just important to make really good eye contact with the child. And then of course, if they're little, you might just need to get down to their level, like on your knees or something, and just say hi and make them feel like, they're welcome where they are. I also like to tell folks to start by asking about the child's special gifts or talents. With children like these with special needs, your first thought is always to go to, what do I need to know about this child? And sometimes it's just refreshing for parents, especially because remember, at this point you're with the child and with their parents. And so it's just refreshing to the parents to start with special gifts and talents instead of need to know information. So maybe something like, what are you really good at? Or, are you a good singer? Or, just like I said, just be creative with the things that you are asking. Um, Giving them a compliment. Some of them might be really just shy and scared and nervous and, don't really know what to expect. So just saying really obvious things would make them feel welcome. So, maybe a compliment goes a long way. So, how I like your shoes. Or, maybe they have a fun t-shirt on or something like that, or a fun hat. So, giving those compliments sometimes can be really important. Like I said, you're going to hear the theme of enthusiasm and cheerleading throughout this short presentation. So just be really enthusiastic. They catch on to your body language and to the tone of your voice and, the words that you use. So something like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to see what we're going to learn this week, or the activities that we're going to do this week. So just kind of be animated and enthusiastic. And then, before you move on, just maybe ask the parents real quick what information you need to know about the child. For example, allergies are usually a big thing for parents. And then, just things like, are they sensitive to loud sounds or flashing lights or, things like that. And the parents may have already put that information in their registration form, and we will definitely share that with you. But sometimes things can come up that they didn't think of to share in their registration. So just a reminder of what you need to know about the child would be good at this point. All right, any questions about this before we move on? Okay. So I'll share a few communication tips and tricks that you can use. So of course, there are always some communication barriers. In some cases, the child may even be nonverbal. And I think we have a couple of those. So in those cases, whether the child is nonverbal or whether they communicate slowly, just make sure that you still communicate frequently. Nobody likes awkward silences, and in this case, it's just the same. So just continue to communicate frequently. Some tips that you can then use for those kiddos that can provide complicated answers is to keep your questions simple. So in other words, ask questions that just require a yes or a no response. So again, you have to be a little creative in the way that you ask your questions, or ask questions that only require a couple of choices. So in other words, if you are getting ready to do a craft and you have some crayons that they can pick from, do you want the red crayon or do you want the yellow crayon? And they can kind of point to the hand that they want to answer. Then also just be mindful of your own facial expressions and your body language. Again, kiddos pick up on that really quickly, whether they have special needs or not. And so if you can continue to just be enthusiastic, then that can break down those communication barriers. And then this one is very important. For those that are slow communicators, just give them adequate time to respond to a question. So, we think, and this is where awkward silences might come in handy. Sometimes for these children, they need time to process the question. So in other words, if you ask them a question, they need to hear it maybe a couple of times in their heads, and then they can respond with an answer. And we tend to think that either they didn't hear or they didn't understand the question. Maybe sometimes that is the case, but most of the time it's just because they need time to process the question. So give them adequate time to respond to that question. All right, any questions on this slide? Cool. All right, so there's always some behaviors that we need to be aware of. Non-cooperation is just one of the bigger ones. And here again, I would say, first of all, which I don't have down on this slide, but just to be super creative. Sometimes it requires just a little bit of a surprise to the child to kind of get them out of that state of non-cooperation. And so again, be aware of your own attitude and your behavior in this case. Children model after other people. And so if you are going to seem to be, a little distant, or you're going to, maybe you get distracted by somebody else or by your phone and things like that, then they will see that and they're going to respond, accordingly. So just again, be aware of your own attitude and behavior. Again, the enthusiasm and the positivity, that comes in with behavior, and trying to model to them that you are enthusiastic about VBC and you are positive about VBC. And then just again, be a cheerleader for them. Like for example, if they seem to be a little hesitant about doing something, you can say, in a surprised way, oh my goodness, I'm so excited to try this game that they have planned here. Just kind of almost shock them out of their state of non-cooperation. I see we have a chat, so let me quickly. Oh, that was Nick saying goodbye. All right. Bye, Nick. Okay. So yes, non-cooperation can sometimes be really difficult to manage. And like I said, if you are just surprising the child with something exciting, then that can snap them out of the non-cooperation behavior. Any questions about this before we move on? Okay. Right, if I can advance my slide, there we go. Attention-seeking behavior is one of the other big ones that we have to deal with. And just like non-cooperation, again here, being a good role model is super, super important. So, you know, encourage the activity to redirect the attention-seeking behavior. You know, saying, you know, in the previous slide, we used the example about being enthusiastic and positive and say that, oh my goodness, I cannot wait to see what they have planned for this activity. In this case, if you really want to have them go do the activity, then you can tell them, I'm gonna let me just move this one away real quick because I cannot see what I have on this slide. Oh, I'm gonna enjoy playing soccer, you know, in this case, or it would be fun, would you like to join me? You know, again, being really animated and excited and enthusiastic. Sometimes it might be needed to just kind of walk towards the activity that you want them to go. But remember to keep an eye out for them. So not move out of the way in such a way that you no longer have eye contact with them. So just move towards the activity, but kind of stay close. And then there's just a few tips about, you know, encouraging redirection. So maybe just them feeling you in that moment might help them to, again, snap out of that behavior, like placing your hand on his or her back and then just, you know, kind of slowly moving them into the direction. And whenever you communicate with them, do that in a strong and confident, but in a kind manner. You know, some of them are really sensitive to, I don't want to use the word rude, but just an unkind manner of communication. And so it is really important for them to show them that you're never angry. You're not upset with them. You just need for them to, you know, do the activity or go into the direction that you want them to go. And then something that is important, especially with those folks that don't communicate all that well, is to keep your communication very short and sweet. So, you know, I'm a big culprit because I feel sometimes that the more words I use, the more they will understand. And that is definitely not the case with so many of our kiddos. So using very short statements, short and sweet statements, can bring your message across. So in other words, if you use the if-then statement, so in other words, something like, you know, if you can clean up your activity, then we can go and enjoy another activity or go and enjoy soccer or something like that. And even there, I used way too many words. So, you know, if, or something like, first this, then that. So in other words, first clean up, then soccer. So try and use as few words as possible to bring your message across. And then, you know, it's don't feel like you are failing if you get frustrated. This happens with all of us. And so I would just encourage you to go ask a staff member or, you know, one of the other leaders in the classroom to give you, you know, either a break or, you know, give you a tip or a trick to get the child to do what you need for them to do. So, you know, even I found this so often that even folks that don't necessarily have, you know, a ton of experience with special needs kids, they just have you know, the ability to be creative and come up with ideas that, because you are so close to the kid that, you know, you start thinking that you just can't come up with any more ideas, and just asking somebody else with who are not as close to the child as you are will give you a couple of ideas. So never feel like you can't ask a staff member or another leader for some tips. Any questions for this slide? Okay. All right, so I'll share some. Yeah, go ahead.
So would you say that in a case of children with special needs, certain things along with the safe gathering certification sometimes have to be changed a little bit? Like you're saying, place your hand on their back.
Yeah.
And it was just a little bit different than safe gathering. So I wanted clarification.
Yeah, great question. Great question. So we will never have you be in a situation where you would necessarily violate, safe gatherings and things like that. And we will never ask you to, have more contact, more physical contact with a child than just, placing or touching. So there's sometimes people get frustrated, and in some cases I don't blame them, and they would grab the child's arm to get them moving into a certain direction, or to get them off of the floor, or things like that. And in some cases, we actually have some kiddos that get off balance and things like that. And then it's necessary to, put your hands on them. But yes, just if you can remember just to keep your hands open at all times when you are touching them, then that should be just fine. Did that answer your question, Aiden?
It did. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
That's a good tip.
All right. Okay, do's and don'ts. Let me just move this a little bit out of the way because I can see that it covers my, there we go. I'll just do this for now. It covers my text a little bit. So I can't see your faces. So if you have questions on this, just unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, so some do's, things that you can remember to keep doing is again, that enthusiasm and cheerleading theme that I have going on in this presentation. Encourage participation and engagement. So this is something that is really important, and I see some of our regular one-on-one buddies in Sunday school miss out on this opportunity. They feel like if the child is not a big communicator, that they might not want to participate or be engaged in the activity or in the question. So I would always want you to encourage your kiddo to participate in a discussion. And it can be as simple as, would you like to raise your hand to answer the question? You don't have to give them the answer to the question. Just ask them if they want to participate by raising their hand. So this is something that is really important throughout VBC. If there's one thing that I want you to remember, then it's this one, is to encourage participation. Positive reinforcement can go a long way. If they answer the question, maybe something like, you did such a great job answering the question, and kind of be specific with the reinforcement that you're giving, or you did such a great job with coloring that picture, or making the lantern. I know we made lanterns last year, or something like that. So so just giving that positive reinforcement, and that can also go a long way with either attention-seeking behavior or non-cooperation, is if you try and find the positive things and then reinforce that instead of reinforcing the negative behavior. Be patient. I think there's going to be some situations during this week that would, kind of test you on your patience, but try and put some extra patience in your pocket for this week. And then on the same lines of encouraging the participation, just encourage independence. So in other words, instead of assuming that they can't do something, maybe you ask them the question first: can you use scissors? Or can you use a hole punch? I don't know if that's going to be used during VBC, but never assume that they can't do something. Always just ask the question first, and in that way you will encourage independence. And then last year we had a couple of classrooms that we used as quiet areas. And so I want to encourage you to find those quiet areas and, have the kiddo take a break if they need to. And so we will have those sorted out, by the beginning of VBC. I know that rooms are very limited when VBC is going because almost all of the rooms are being used. And then even if it's not a classroom, even if it's just, sitting outside in the commons area, on those couches or at the high top tables or something like that, just to be outside of, the hustle and bustle. So I want to encourage you to use quiet areas if you think the kiddo is a little overstimulated. And so I'm sure this is going to be a rule across VBC, but I want to really encourage you to avoid cell phone use while you are the body. It can just be a few seconds when you don't have your attention on the kiddo that something can go wrong. And so just put those cell phones away for the week. This is something that's really important too, to never be alone with the participant. And so, especially if you go and use those quiet areas, I would encourage you to find somebody, and there's always going to be, people roaming around. So just find somebody, especially if you go into a classroom. If you're going to be in the commons area, then there will always be people around. But if you find a classroom for a quiet area, just ask somebody to either if they can come with you to the quiet area, or if they can, find somebody to come to the quiet area with you. I'm going to try and be visible during VBC. Last year, I ended up with one of the kiddos because her volunteer had some family issues. And so I was kind of, occupied with the one child, but I'm going to try and just be available for things like this, to either, answer questions or accompany you when you are alone with the participants. So I'm going to try my best to be visible to all of you. So yes, for restroom use, and I think this is a rule across the board anyway, and a safe gatherings rule is to never be alone when you have your participant using the restroom. We do have some kiddos that either have a pull-up or something like that. If there's an accident that need to be cleaned, then it's staff members' responsibility to help with that. So, and that can be any staff member. So, even, folks like Nick or Amy and, other Kids Core staff. But then obviously we will be there as well to help out. And then Avery Ferguson, who is on this call, she just don't have her, she doesn't have her video on. Avery is on staff with us too. And so if you happen to see her around, she can also help with any staff related assistance that you might need. Okay. And then don't complete tasks on their behalf. That, goes hand in hand with encouraging independence. So like I said earlier, just never assume that they can do something. Just have them try it first. Okay, any questions on this slide? I think it's pretty straightforward. All right. Let's see. Oh, and there we go. It's all done. Have fun. That is my final message. So what I do want to have you write down, if you can, is at least my phone number. Um, is your pictures in the way? Can you see the phone number? This is my cell phone number. And so you can text it at any time. So if you text me and I don't have your contact details, just tell me that this is so-and-so, this is Aiden, I am a buddy with, you know, whatever kiddo, and I have a question. So and texting is gets to me a little bit faster than email. And so that would be really convenient for me if you can text me with your questions. Okay, so again, I hope you could see that some of these things are just, like I said at the beginning, really obvious. And you just need to be reminded every once in a while of the tricks that you can have up your sleeve. So with that, if there's no other questions, I think we can wrap this up. But I'll give a few seconds for you to unmute if you have any other questions. Otherwise, we'll adjourn. Okay, Aiden is good. All right. Okay, well, thank you so much, folks. First of all, for volunteering at VBC, and then second of all, to take time to join this, and then for any others who's gonna watch this afterwards, for taking the time to listening. All right, so I will see you around. I will try and get to all of the locations. So hopefully I can see those folks at Overland Park too. All right, thanks so much. Have a great evening.
You too,
Bye.
thank you.
All right, bye.
Thank you, Mona.
All right.